Hey cinephiles, the following discussion includes discussions about sexuality, torture, and sexual assault comes up in a brief conversation between the guest and I. If that is something you cannot handle, then listener discretion is advised. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Welcome back. You're listening to the Cinema Condition with the host, filmmaker, and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. And today we are going to do another movie with another guest here. And I want to thank everybody for listening to the last two episodes. You guys have really enjoyed Through a Glass Darkly with Aidan Byrnes, and you guys really enjoyed E.T. with Wesley Baudelaire. So thank you so much for listening to those episodes. And today I said that I forgot to announce this at the end of last week's episode, ET, and I was going to say that, we were going to start bringing people back because last week was the last time I introduced a new guest to the show, and this week we're actually bringing back somebody else because the next week we will also be bringing back somebody else. So this is when you're going to start seeing some reoccurring guests coming back and also seeing some new ones here and there because we're kind of past the middle. We're almost to the middle of the season, so we're almost at number 15, and things are going to start looking like, look who's back and look who's back and this and that, right? But it's fine because it's still Cinema Condition Season 1, and we're here to have a lot of fun and discuss the films that we're discussing. And today I'm being joined by my wonderful friend from episode 3. Yes, you know who it is. It is Leah Byrnes here with us. And she and I are going to discuss 2016's The Handmaiden from Park Chan-wook. And hello, Leah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Always excited to talk about lesbian revenge films. So,
Yep. I don't know what was happening on number 3 because you waved your magic fingers and magically you got us 184 views on YouTube.
I guess people just like hearing me talk about castration. I don't know.
Wish that would have been the same for the audio views, but like I said, it's okay, guys. Don't worry, because these episodes are also available on the main feed, but they're going up periodically. So by the time this is up, I hope the whole season is done. I don't know when this will be up by. So don't worry, guys. If you don't catch these on the feed that it's on, it'll also be on anchor.fm/nerdcore. But Leah, I'm so happy to have you back because episode 3 was probably one of my favorites, and you're probably one of the, like I said on Twitter, you're like one of the smartest people I know to discuss movies with. So it's just so much fun bringing you back, and I can't wait to talk about this movie with you because this is one that I pre-chose for you because I know you and I are about to have a really good conversation about this movie.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With me, there's some episodes, there's movies that I pre-choose to have on the season, and it's like, I wonder who I can find that'd be a really good fit to talk about this movie with, instead of going like, hey, choose your movie. I pre-chose E.T. for Wesley because, well, that's his favorite movie of all time. Of course, he was going to choose that. And, of course, Leah wanted to do Audition, so we gave her that choice. But now that she's back, she's decided to tackle another movie with me. And, Leah, I want to know, how's the quarantine going?
Pretty good. So I don't really leave my house that much anyway when there's not a pandemic going on. So there's not much lifestyle changes for me at the moment. Just chilling, playing Animal Crossing, and watching lesbian movies.
You've been playing a crap ton of lesbian. You've been playing a crap ton of Animal Crossing, as I can tell.
Yeah, I have. I've put in like over 150 hours already.
Jesus Christ, have you not thought of streaming that content?
Oh no, I'm thinking of streaming it at some point later this week. I just have to dye my hair again because it looks real nasty.
Really? I'd be really interested to see how your hair looks. But what's it called? Either way, I'm glad you're here, and yeah, I'm just checking in because what's it called. We're in a different difficult times at the moment, and I wanted to know how one of my friends was doing. But this is pretty much, you already know how it goes here, right? It's not a review show. This is a show to discuss the themes of the films that we watch. And I don't know if you listened to Aiden's episode, because that was pretty damn good what we did on Aiden's episode.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet, but I want to. I've just been playing so much Animal Crossing that everything else has just been pushed to the side at the moment.
It's fine. I understand. I mean, I don't have a Switch. I was hoping to get one with my Trump bucks, but yeah, I'm not getting those. So what's it called? That's fun. But what's it called? It's fine. You just check it out, because I think Aiden and I had a really, really good conversation on not on Animal Crossing, but on Through Glass Darkly. I don't know if you've watched that film, but
I have not, but I will listen to it anyway because I love you guys, obviously, even though Aiden's a brat.
I mean, you're not wrong. He is a brat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and do this, because we have to introduce, I don't have to introduce Leia, but I do have to introduce Park Chan-wook, because just like Takashi Miike, I have to introduce our filmmaker that we're talking about, because we haven't talked about any of his films before. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the filmmaker known as Park Chan-wook. And he was born August 23rd in 1963, so he is 56 years old. I'm sorry about that. Don't want to make... In this case, I would like to make him younger than he is, but yeah, I made him a little bit younger. And he was born in Seoul, South Korea. And what's it called? He is a director, he's a screenwriter, he's a producer. At a young age, he was really, really interested in philosophy. And he studied that philosophy at Sogang University, but he had a very big disappointment with the analytic orientation of the department, so he decided to go away from that. He would create his own cinema club, which he called Sogang Film Community. And he would publish a bunch of articles. He wanted to become an art critic for some time, and he would also become a film critic. But it wasn't until he watched Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo when he decided that he wanted to become a filmmaker. So he wrote more articles on film after, and he would go on to make start his career in filmmaking. And he started his career in 1992 with his film The Moon is the Sun's Dream. He would go on to make, 2 more films. Direct another film called Trio, but it wasn't until 2000 when he directed and he wrote and directed Joint Security Area, where he would start to really, really get into the zeitgeist. And then, of course, the 3 films that he's mainly known for, his Vengeance trilogy in 2002, 2003, and 2005. Those are Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, and Lady Vengeance. And, he would also make other films like Thirst, Stoker, which was his first U.S. film. He was also a producer on Snowpiercer. And then he would make 26, to me, what I think is my favorite film from him at the moment, because I've only watched The Handmaiden and Old Boy, but that is 2016's The Handmaiden. He made it for Amazon, with Amazon Studios. And yeah, this film is up my alley. I'm a very big fan of the the forbidden love trope. I'm also a big fan of stories that kind of involve eroticism in some ways. And I don't mean it in a perverted way. I mean it more in I'm really interested in the way that we depict sexuality in movies. It's one of the big things that I tend to tackle in my scripts. And because Brad said on one of the episodes of the Nerdcore Live show that he doesn't picture me working with Disney because a lot of my films are sexual in nature. So that was funny. These type of films are really up my alley, and so will be next week's episode, because that's going to be another film that's very much, that includes a lot of eroticism. This film is an adaptation. It's a very loose adaptation of the novel Fingersmith by Welsh writer Sarah Waters. But instead of it being in Victorian Europe, Victorian England. This is set in colonial Korea under the rule of the Japanese. And it stars a woman who is set to go and be a housemaid for this, royal figure who is supposed to be marrying her uncle, but is entered in this scam. The housemaid seems to be entered in the scam with a count, quote unquote count, to go ahead and take the inheritance from our main protagonist. And that is the Handmaiden and Leah. So, I say this is not a review show, but this is actually a movie you've never seen. So I really do want to know what you thought about the movie.
I thought it was incredible. I am a sucker for any films that have forbidden romance, especially when it's women love women rather than some sort of boring heterosexual thing that I've seen a million times already. So I really liked just the way their love was shown. It was really cute, honestly. And I was actually pretty excited to find out that it was based off of that Victorian novel, because I was like, damn, that's actually pretty cool considering how different the setting is. But even though the setting was so different, it still kind of encompassed a lot of Victorian themes and characteristics, like the plot with the madhouse and how Hidiko's a woman of the home and just stays and does whatever her uncle tells her to. And the clothing, there was corsets and petticoats and gloves, and it had all that cool stuff going on with the class structure. So I thought it was a really incredible movie.
Yeah, so what's it called? I watched this on Amazon Prime, so I had the pleasure of seeing the X-ray on the sides, and I wanted to point out some of the X-rays because I really think that this stuff is really important, especially as somebody who wants to make films really relaying around the subject of eroticism, and I wanted to highlight some of these. So what's it called? Where are you? Right, it's got to be right here. So, God, man, I just love when I'm not prepared, right?
It happens.
So for the lesbian lovemaking scenes between the two female leads, all the crew members were asked to leave the set, and only a female staff holding the boom microphone was present. The scenes were filmed with a remote-controlled camera. On the date of shooting, all visitors were not allowed to be near the shooting area. All male crew members had a day off on the shooting day. The bathroom set in Hideko's room was made into a resting area for the two actresses to relax between takes. The bed scenes were shot during the early stages of the production, as Park thought it was stressful and burdensome for everyone. During pre-production, everything has been choreographed and discussed between Park and the two actresses, who were fully dressed. Tae Kim said she felt slightly insecure with performing the simulated sex scenes, but Min Hee Kim reassured and energized her. Even before he had finished reading the novel, Fingersmith director Park Chan-wook had preemptively decided to make a film with a hat. Okay, we're not. He also said that he had a couple of consultants he went to on how to depict, love between queer women, which is something I do have to point out. Of course, this is stuff that you should, do as a filmmaker. You should always use a closed set. And I think Park taking it a little bit step further is I'm not even going to be in the room. I'm going to go and just use a remote controlled camera, which, by the way, that just sounds so badass, a remote controlled camera. I think that's such a really I think it's a really imperative thing that filmmakers should understand, especially when tackling subjects such as intimacy between women who love women. And it's having to make your actors feel safe and feel comfortable, and is sometimes having to use a closed set and telling your male counterparts who are in your crew to take the day off, and the only person who needs to be in that room is the director, the audio person, and the cinematographer. And if you want to go a step further and be okay, no, the only one who needs to be in there is the audio person, who is a woman. And you've seen this happen before on Olivia Wilde's Booksmart. She did the same thing as with the clothes set. She was in there. The monitors were turned off. The producers' monitors were turned off as well. It was only the actors, her, audio person, and cinematographer in there. So I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear that, because there was this one movie I really liked at first. Blue is the Warmest Color.
Oh, yeah.
It's another Women Love Women film, and I really liked it when I first saw it. And then I found out that the director is like a huge creep, and like the very first scene he made the actresses shoot before they even got to know each other was like that 7-minute sex scene that's like right in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
And he made them do it like all day, and it just sounded awful, like the way he treated them. And I'm like, Jesus, that's terrible.
Yeah, at first time I watched that film, I knew nothing about Kitachi. I don't know how to say his last name because I don't know how to pronounce it. But I had no idea how he was on set and everything, and I was like, God, I fucking love this movie. It's like one of my favorites. It's still, I leave that score what I gave it. I'm never gonna rewatch that movie in a platform where I can give it money, or even try to rewatch it, because I just can't stop and think about the way that he treated the actors. So after I found out, I was like, well, you know what? I'm not rewatching that, because that's just shitty. And I know he also made one of the actresses smoke actual cigarettes, even though she didn't want to smoke cigarettes. And it's just there's better ways to treat those who work with you. And I think that reading the way that Park Chan-wook used this subject matter, I think it's a better way. I think that's a way that we need to we need to kind of change the industry to go towards, especially having on-set intimacy coordinators, which is something that I plan to use, and it's something that I'm hopefully going to use, because I am applying for an independent study next semester, and the film that I would like to shoot includes an intimate scene, and I want to include an intimacy coordinator to make sure that everything is portrayed accurately. And you lose nothing by doing these things, and you also gain the respect and the trust of your castmates and your crew. And it's really important to do stuff like that, especially when you're tackling such subject matter. Yeah.
Even just skeptical coming into the film, like The Handmaiden at first, because I was like, okay, it's a guy and he's portraying like this lesbian love story. So I was like, assuming the like sex scenes are going to be really over the top and from like a male point of view, like appealing to male fantasy. But for the most part, it felt like pretty good, pretty well done. Other than I know a lot of my lesbian friends always like mock films that have any lesbian like scissoring scene.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
We don't really scissor.
Yeah. But and to be fair, I kind of understand why this film would present the eroticism in a very male gazy way, because the pornography that's being read in that room is very male gazy. So of course,
exactly.
Of course, the way that she would have her first sexual encounter would be by the way it was depicted in the pornography she was reading to the people.
Yeah, I know the author of Fingersmith was talking about it too, because she was like afraid it was going to be weird too. But she said that it was very faithful to the idea that she set in her book, that like women can appropriate like the male pornographic tradition and like fix it and like use it to find their own way of exploring their desires. And I think the film like nailed that on the head.
Yeah, because like at the beginning that's kind of one of the first points I wanted to talk with you, because the male gaze is really in play the whole time. I don't think it is until the end where this film really kind of interprets its main theme to me, which is basically grabbing the male gaze and completely turning it on its head, and having a film where it's like these women are actually taking control of the sexual desires that are being crafted and created in the pornography that they read by men, and using it for their own self-pleasure when you get to that ending with the bells.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked that story, The Sound of Bells on a Windless Night. Like, out of all of the pornographic readings that she had to read to like the group of collectors, that was the only one where I felt like she wasn't putting on such a huge performance when reading it. Like, it seemed like she was genuinely enjoying reading that story, as opposed to, what was it? There's Pain is a Garment, the one where like the Duchess is like whipping and like banging a dude while he's being strangled to death, or the other one where it's talking about a girl's like jade gate, aka vagina, for anyone who doesn't get that, and how it's like hairless and white as snow and smooth as jade. So like all these women are just like appealing to male fantasies of being like hairless, soft, tight. Like they talk about someone's vagina being tight as a drum, and they're either like compliant and like let the men do what they want, or they're like the hot dominatrix who like can take care of a man. But when it comes to like The Sound of Bells on a Windless Night, it was actually just kind of a really cute story.
Yeah, and nobody in that audience was really gravitating towards it. They were like, yeah, that was a really good reading. But she was the only one who was like, yeah, I really like this story. This isn't like, she's wiping the sweat, but she's like, you know, I actually like this story.
And like, I don't know, some of the dudes still looked pretty horny, like turned on from that story, but like it wasn't as bad as the earlier ones where you could see that like how flushed they were.
Oh yeah.
And how
badly they wanted to slip. How badly they wanted to slip their hands in their pants. So bad.
Yeah, and how like the Count had that little like vision of him being whipped by Hideko and stuff. I'm pretty sure that was just like the Count's ideas based on the story. But I really actually loved those scenes just because of like how intense they were. I was not expecting that to come at all. Like from part 1 of the movie, she just seemed so innocent. And then just by part 2, I was like, holy shit, like, this is real.
Yeah.
It's really fucked up.
And so I watched this one first, and then I watched Old Boy, and then I watched this one the second time, right? Park Chan-wook has a really interesting way that he creates his films. There usually in a film you'll have like one climax. This film has 3 fucking climaxes.
Yeah.
And I want to say Old Boy is the same way. Old Boy has like 3 twists in his movie. And I just don't know if it's the way that, you know, Korea handles filmmaking differently, because a lot of the films of Bong Joon-ho as well kind of have that style of there being multiple twists, but nobody does it like Park Chan-wook. And I wanted to bring that up because there's also parts in the film, you know, where you talk about all these being very male fantasy like, and I will put a disclaimer on here because it just happens that every time that we have Leah on, we discuss the very morbid and unusual aspects of the human mind. There's also seems to be a very big fantasy of taking women by force in the film. So, and it's not just with the uncle; it's with the Count.
Have like what he said specifically to her written down because it was so appalling. I was like, this is fucking disgusting, and I want you dead.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of the films that Park makes are very female centric, and before this, when he did Thirst, he really wanted to make a Western with a male protagonist. He had already made a lot of movies with the females being at the very top and being very, very prominent in the film. And he was like, well, I couldn't get in finance. And he was like, I'll go back and make another movie. Let's go with another female protagonist at the head. And he makes this, and it's incredible because, you know, the women are very much taking away from the men, but it's really interesting. Well, they're not taking away from the men. They're really like kind of like, reclaiming the desire back from them. And it's really interesting because, you know, you bring up stuff like just taking women by force and how it's seen as a very big pleasure. And it's like, God, man, this guy is like, these men are disgusting. This super disgusting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too, like the part of why he like thinks that way is because like when he's like about to like rape Hideko in the end, he's just like, you'll become a completely new woman. It won't hurt, from those books. Like the stories that he's consumed like tell him that women like to be taken by force.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's still kind of an issue with that with like modern day pornography too, where men kind of learn the wrong things from porn sometimes. Like there are great there, but for the most part, most of it is, like appeals to power fantasies for men and like how women should be perfect and hairless and all that stuff. And I think a lot of people, when they consume that, they start to really believe it. Like they don't realize it's a fictional thing that's happening. They're like, women like it if I just choke them or hit them without their consent.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's like even in a film based in colonial Korea, it's very prevalent and nowadays where like a lot of pornography viewed on video sites, like it's very much not exactly what goes down during real sex, and it's very fictionalized. Pornography. The essence of pornography is a very oppressive. An oppressive. What can I say? Category upon the woman, upon the female body, and it forces women to kind of be submissive, and it really reflects on this film when he's like, it's okay, you're gonna like it, and you'll become a new woman by the end, being taken by force, and even though like, dude, like she's the one who's taking you by force. If you flip the tables, she's giving you opium infused wine, so that way she can get out of here and like basically and get out and go with the woman she actually loves. It's like you're too clouded by this false sense of what sexual desire should be because of those books, and instead of being able to actually read the room and know that, you're about to get sent to your own hell right now when you wake up.
Yeah, like definitely the porn that's present in like the movie, like it erases like any aspect really of womanly desire other than like the story of the sound of bells on a windless night. Like that was the only one that really talked about like, oh, like before you insert the bells and all this stuff, like make sure you're turned on and like enjoying the moment, and everything else is just all like men staring into hairless pussies or or
white as snow,
erotica. Yeah, actually I have like a random fun fact for talk about hairless vaginas. Sorry.
Yeah.
But so like, since this is based on a Victorian novel,
I just love when you come on the show. I just love when you come on the show. You bring up the most amazing facts. Just like last time you were on here, you talked about the other Takashi Miike film where she was in a pool of blood, shit, and piss.
Yeah. Well, this is a real life fact, like not just from a movie, but since this story is based on a Victorian novel, it started getting me thinking, because I took like a Victorian women's art class, so it made me think back on like the nude art I've seen from the Victorian period and stuff, and a lot of it like the porn in this movie like show women as kind of hairless. And so there was one Victorian artist, Ruskin, who actually like when he went to make love to his wife on their wedding night, he saw that she had pubic hair, and it like shocked him, and he was like so completely disgusted that he wouldn't consummate the marriage.
You gotta be kidding. Wow.
No, because she had pubic hair. And so it just like, I don't know, really just makes you think about how truly like dumb and terrible men are when they like get these ideas from media about how women should be, and they're like, oh.
And it's interesting because you get to, and even then now we have this discussed with hair. When in the 60s, like all the pornography in the 60s had dudes with so much hair and women with hair all over their private areas, and you're like, what the hell? When did we have like a shift in the 60s, and then we decided to revert back and be like, oh, now hair is disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I think like the 60s was just like a little more liberated because everyone was like really high, maybe. I don't know, but we're high now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that hair or is that chocolate? I don't know what it is, right? Either way, I'm going in. But yeah, I mean, what's it called? The eroticism is just handled. To me, it's handled with a lot of care and a lot of appreciation for the craft that they're making here. The cinematography is incredible. The way that the camera just, like I said, he's breaking so many rules. So I know you're not a film student, Leah, but you did take a crap ton of cinema classes. He breaks the 180 rule so many times, and I noticed
that.
Yeah, you know what the 180 rule is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's breaking that so many times, and it's kind of like going into that God's point of view sometimes as well, where it's like up, the camera's like really up in the air and like looking over the houses and the women kind of leaving the house so they can escape to the the fake marriage of the marriage of the Count and Hideku, and it's God, I just love how it incorporates, and I love how this filmmaker just uses the camera here. It's like I said, there's that one instance when they're on the bathtub and where she looks down at her nipples, and I said any other director would just gently move the camera down. And Park Chan-wook, he really kind of has the camera moving like if it would be an actual person looking. Like, I don't want to look, but I really want to admire them. But I'm gonna like look down and look up, and then look back down, look back up. It's not just this male gazy, gentle way of like bringing the camera down. Like, holy crap, we're kind of getting to the nipples. Look at the nipples, and it's like, wow, look at that. No, it's very jarring. It's very the camera moves very differently.
Yeah, I like that it does that because like Suki is so like shy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like that like completely fit her character with how she would absolutely like try and sneak a peek of like Hideko's body.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. All right. So we have to go ahead and head into a commercial break. When we come back, we'll go ahead and continue on with our discussion on Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden. But in the meantime, you guys have to listen to these commercials, and we'll be back after the break. So we'll see you in a bit. Hey, I'm Raul Alejandro Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, if it's from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT, nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Core. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Core podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/the Nerdcore. and the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, 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 guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. All you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey, everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore Podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right?
No,
and
this one.
we come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show, the Nerdcore Podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
All right, we're back here with the Cinema Condition, and we're talking with Leah Byrnes about Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden, and we are back for our discussion because you guys listen to all those wonderful commercials, and I want to thank everybody who made all those wonderful commercials. And just know that those commercials are very, very, very important because you should go and listen to all the rest of the shows on the Nerdcore podcast feed at anchor.fm/thenerdcore. And you should also leave a review on our Apple Podcast page for not just this podcast, but the podcast on the Nerdcore. That's what's going to help people find these episodes a lot better, is by going and leaving a review on the Nerdcore and the Cinema Condition podcast feeds. So please go ahead and do that because it really, really does help us out here. And we're back here with Leah. And Leah, what's it called? We wanted to bring up something. I wanted to bring up something. What's the last one? One of the last like pornographic discussions because what's it called? You introduced. Well, I wasn't really introduced to the theory by you. I was really introduced to it by my World Film and Film Theory class where we tackled psychoanalytic film theory. And my professor really brought up what's it called, castration anxiety, and the whole idea of taking something away that is taking something away that is always kind of being threatened, right? You know, you're like, oh, don't behave bad, or I'm gonna cut it off. And what's it called? That was very present in our film that we talked about on episode 3, Takashi Miike's edition, right? Very, very present. But it's also present kind of towards the end of this one. But it's also present in a lot of other parts of the film. And I want to talk about it. So we're going to finally have our discussion on here on castration anxiety. But because it's a Leia episode, how could I not bring up castration anxiety?
Right? It's just everywhere.
It's your brand.
I'll find it in any film.
It's in there. It's in every one of these films. Like, Hell, even Ratatouille, right? You know, Ratatouille has.
Oh my god.
No. Yeah, so what's it called? Towards at the end of the film, what's it called? The Count has been taken back to the uncle because what's it called? He obviously disobeyed orders, and what's it called? He ties him up in his basement where he has an octopus in there too.
Yeah.
He has basically all his tools to where he killed Hideku's aunt, and he threatens to hurt Hideku if she goes against his plans, and just overall is bad to her and bad to him. And he takes the Count there, and he proceeds to cut his fingers off, just straight up going for the fingers, right? And he puts a drill through the other hand. But once the Count really turns the tables in a sense, because he really can't turn them since he's being, tied up. He smokes opium. Not opium, mercury cigarettes, which kill both the Count and the uncle. And he says a line that really stands out to me every time I watch the film, and it stood out to you during your first watch of the film. At least I die with my cock intact. And it's like,
Yes.
So take it away, Leah.
I think it's also important to mention. So there's the huge octopus in the room, but the walls of the basement are lined with preserved jars of genitals that he's obviously been cutting out of people and collecting. He's got whole vaginas and penises in jars, and I feel like cutting out a vagina is probably actually really hard. So I don't know, kudos on that, I guess. But so the threat is very real. Just even when he wakes up immediately and sees all that on the wall, he's like, well, probably get my dick cut off today.
Yep.
And the fingers, just kind of leading up to it. But funny that his final words were as uncle collapses and the scissors fall out of his hands, where he's like, at least I die with my cock intact. And I'm like, you fucking asshole.
Yeah, and there's other parts where he really does put the emphasis on his cock, where he supposedly gets mad at Suki. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was bad. Oh wow. Where he gets mad at her, and he puts her hand on his dick, and he's like, feel how hard it is, and it's like, then she says oh, and don't ever put my hand on a little tiny joke of a cock like that. And there's this very big idea of these men and the men, especially the Count in this film, being crap, I might get my dick cut off. But there's also, when the readings are being done, those men have this fear of grabbing their dick while they're there as well. You see it, they so badly want to relieve themselves of the sexual pleasure that they're feeling, but they can't. Because, well, not because they're just out in public in a sense as well, but how this guy rolls. The uncle is cross him, he'll cut your dick off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know what to think of Uncle at first. When everyone was first talking about him, they're just oh, he just really likes books, and I'm like, oh, how bad can he be? And then I see the dude. I'm like, well, okay. First of all, he's got this black ass tongue, and his eyebrows are a mess. I'm just like, there's something off about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was right. What the fuck? Who collects genitals in their basement?
Collecting pornographic books is something, but genitals in your basement?
Yeah, I feel like collecting dirty books and drawings it's fine. Whatever. I'm sure I have some naughty shit hidden somewhere in my house, but I don't have jars of genitals. What the fuck?
Yeah, dude. Which is why I love that scene so much when Hideku and Suki kind of go and destroy the library, and they rip out the pages, and it's I think that's really where that shift, where I'm telling you, that's where that shift of the women reclaiming the power really comes in. And it's because Hideko's like, wow, she's actually doing this. Like, I've been wanting to do this for all my life, and now she's finally doing it. And he's like, it takes a bit for her to get involved, and then she does it, and it's like, wow, like it's that to me was the second hottest scene in the movie.
Yeah, I thought that scene was really cute, just
Yeah.
because like Hideko is obviously still scared, even though
Yeah.
she's running away from home, but she's still terrified of that basement,
Yeah.
and like that's why she has the opium in the first place, to like kill
Mhm.
herself if he ever drags her down there. But then when Suki just goes crazy and starts destroying it, I was like, damn, that's romantic as hell.
Yeah, that was what's it called? That was one of the. I love that scene. It's beautiful. She's like kind of easing her way into it. It's just like that first scene in the bathtub. Like I said, that's probably one of the most sensual and beautiful scenes as well, and where she's just kind of softening the tooth, and it's like just kind of like looking at her, like wow, like God, it's just amazing. But when they destroy that library, I'm like, God, that's fucking amazing. Like, look at these two powerful women just absolutely destroying, the very thing that holds them to that house.
Mhm.
It's amazing, and I really what's it called? I really enjoyed that scene a lot, and the castration anxiety is very, very prominent within the Count. So much that what's it called? And he wakes up with his pants down. He's like, can you go get those for me? And it's like, yeah, I'm about to go get killed. Like, yeah, might as well. At least I still have my dick, right?
Yeah, I feel like the Count thinks all of his power is in his manhood, because cisgender men and love their penises. Like, they think that's what makes them hot shit, but like it doesn't. I don't know. It's
I don't know.
I don't
man.
know.
There's just this odd obsession with our members, apparently. But
I know, it's because they're like, this is what makes me a man, and it's like, it really does not. Like,
no.
you're just a piece of shit with a non-impressive dick. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I just love that she was like, that's a tiny joke for a cock, bro. Like
I know.
Oh man. So yeah, and I know you had another thing you wanted to bring up, Leah.
What?
Moving on to the next theme, you wanted to bring up the whole Japanese and Korean, the Korean what's it called? Relationships between in the film.
Yeah. So, did you want to start, or
You go ahead
me?
and go. You go ahead and go.
Okay. Well, I just like wrote down like a little historical paragraph, which I basically took from the History Channel, but whatever. So,
Aliens.
from 1910 to 1945, the Empire of Japan ruled over Korea. The Empire of Japan silenced Korean culture by forbidding schools to speak Korean. They burned over 200,000 Korean historical documents, and they ordered at one point that films were supposed to be made in Japanese. And Japan basically took over the whole land. They had like Japanese families settle down in Korea, kind of like how we have Hideko and like her aunt have obviously settled down there. They tore down a bunch of historic buildings, and they planted a bunch of non-native like species in order to make the landscape have a more like Japanese aesthetic. Many Korean people were made to work in Japan, and then thousands of women had to work as prostitutes for military brothels. Korean people were forced to adopt Japanese religious practices like Shintoism. And near the end of occupation in 1939, that's when Korean families were allowed to choose Japanese surnames. And I say allowed like that because basically if they didn't choose a Japanese surname, then they wouldn't be recognized by the government, and they wouldn't be able to get rations or like mail.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like a lot of protests against like the Japanese rule from the Korean people too, which is like really great because they didn't just sit there and take it for like those 30 odd years that they're under control. But it's really interesting that in the movie, like, Uncle is a Korean man, but he basically just sold out his country because he wanted to be rich and he wanted to become Japanese. Like, he thought Japan was beautiful. Like, he said that Korea is soft, slow, dull, and hopeless, but
Mhm.
Japan's beautiful.
And the man very much, admires the pornographic Japanese art, like the Dream of the Fisherman's Wife that's in there, and there's another one too that gets mentioned in there. But yeah, you see the full picture of the the Dream of the Fisherman's Wife, and I believe you said you have the translation of it too, right?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna read all of it because it's like kind of really sexual, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
But,
well, that's only for OnlyFans.com, the cinema condition, right?
Yeah, but essentially, like, so all the writing, like, in the background of the piece of art, you know, for people who haven't seen Dream of the Fisherman's Wife, it's this lady, a pearl diver, who's kind of laid out on the beach, and she's got an octopus performing cunnilingus and another one making out with her, touching her nipple. But anyway, the translation is mainly like the octopuses kind of like talking about, they're saying like they're gonna abduct her, capture her because she has a good pussy. And like at first like the diver's not really into it, but gets more into it. But like I don't know, it's definitely, it's not like super rapey, but like a little bit, you know, because the octopus are like, oh, and when she loses like consciousness, like we'll do this all over again. And I'm like, oh,
God.
okay.
God.
Yeah, it's like really fucked up, but
Yeah.
it's interesting that that's the kind of art that this guy is collecting, and this is what he's like, yes, Japan is so beautiful. And it's like, yeah, you know, non-consensual octopus porn. That's what's beautiful to you.
Yeah, it just goes to reiterate that this guy's a piece of shit. But there's also seems to be like a very self-hate for, you know, the Korean identity in the movie as well, and I wanted to bring that up because the Count very much is like, well, you know, it's fine. I'd rather speak Japanese in a way. And he disguises himself as being Japanese, and there seems to be this self-loathing of the Korean identity. Especially, well, looking at the time, you know, at the colonial rule, it's like what happens when your identity is kind of stolen from you, and you're kind of told to, you know, keep it hidden, be made to feel like it is not part of you. You kind of have to adopt either the colonizer's identity, or you have to either basically live as one of the oddballs out there who is actually, you know, wants to be part of their identity.
Yeah, and I think that like his self-hatred is like a really just good reflection of how Japan tried to completely annihilate like the culture. And so it was like to a point too where like they'll think like Korea wouldn't be where it is if it hadn't have been for the influence that Japan had. Like I know there was some controversial thing, I don't remember who said it, but someone was saying, like said basically that they're like, oh, Korea wouldn't be as great as it is if it weren't for Japan, in like reference to some sort of Olympic event. And people got really enraged at that because it's awful, obviously, but yeah, that's what Japan kind of did to them.
And then you see that as Suki and and Hideko really feel very comfortable when they speak Korean with each other. And you know, she starts off, Suki kind of starts off as talking Japanese, or she refuses to speak Japanese to Hideko really refuses to speak Japanese back, and she's like, you know, like, just speak Korean with me. And they seem to feel comfortable, while you have characters like, you know, Uncle and the Count that really kind of want to just disregard the Korean identity and really become more fully fledged into the Japanese identity.
Yeah. And I think like for the most part, I think the Count was actually pretty proud of his Korean like heritage, but he just, you know, took on the guise of a Japanese noble in order to infiltrate the household better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How else are you gonna get that nice inheritance, right? We never even go like. I still find it hilarious. He just wanted to split it 50 yen with everybody, and she was like, "Nope, I'm getting 100,000 extra. I ain't taking just 50,000." And the
Hell yeah.
jewelry.
I mean, she's doing most of the work, so
Exactly. And that leads wonderfully into our last final topic, and which is probably the what's it called, the most important topic of this film. But I know you wanted to bring up some stuff of the architecture, so I'll let you get into that before we talk about the class warfare.
okay. So I just thought initially it was really interesting when Suki's being shown around the house, well, the manor for the first time, and I can't remember that lady's name. I think it's Sasaki.
Sasaki.
Okay, cool. She's explaining how the property is made up of 3 different buildings. It has the Western style wing, which was made by an English architect, and then it has a Japanese wing from the main house, and then there's the annex, which Uncle turned into a library to hold all his pornography. But it was really cool that, well, I don't know. It was interesting that she was like, not even in Japan is there a building combining 2 styles. It reflects Master's admiration for Japan and England. And all the England talk got me thinking again about Victorian literature and Gothic literature too, because it's like the mansion is part Gothic, part Japanese. And so in a lot of Gothic literature, like Castle of Otranto, or even thinking of like Edgar Allan Poe's like Fall of the House of Usher, like the building in itself like is kind of a character as well, you know? Like it has all these hidden aspects to it. It reflects everything that's going on in the film, and you have all these public or like private spaces, like the secret basement. It's like this evil, terrible place that like basically just shows like Uncle's true character. And I don't know. I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
I like architecture. I don't know. And yeah, and I like how in like the Japanese rooms too, with like the sliding doors, you can see if people are like snooping on you or like listening in on your secrets through like the partition. Yeah.
Comes in handy with that maid. You know, she's just sitting there like, no. By the way, forever. By the way, there apparently is an extended cut, which I cannot watch because it is only available to the regions that are not in North America. So what's it called? There's no point in buying that Blu-ray then. But there's an extended cut where in that scene, the Count actually does a handstand. And I was like, why? So
that's interesting.
It's very interesting. But I really want to watch the extended version of this film because apparently it's 3 hours and 3 minutes. It has like 25 minutes of extra footage. And I would really like to see the extended version of this. But yeah, it's like he does a handstand in there while the lady stays there for a lot longer, by the way, in the extended version. So yeah, even though it did feel like
love that.
I love that, it already feels like she's in there for a while too, which is like, what? Like why are you still there, man? Like just leave. But
I love anything that has really weird, long, awkward pauses like that. Like, I could have sat there watching her waiting for like 5 minutes probably. And that's probably just because I love David Lynch so much and he does just weird ass shit like that.
Oh, yeah. And God, I love Lynch too. And still hoping for somebody to come at me and say they want to do Mulholland Drive because that's one of my favorite movies of all time. So, yeah. But let's go ahead and go into our final theme here, and let's go ahead and get to it because we're nearing the end, and as always, I don't want to keep you as much time, and I also have to start a live stream in like 30 minutes, so we have to get to it already. So it is absolutely no surprise that Suki is a poor woman. You know, of course, the Count is poor as well, but he's trying to disguise himself as a rich man. And he kind of takes Suki and wants to manipulate her. And when you find out about the twist that, you know, that Suki, that the Count and Hideko have always been in on it, it's no surprise that the lower class man wants to, wants to kind of pin the other lower class woman against him. And so that way he can find a way to go on top and you basically take over the higher class. Once again, this is one of the themes that's also very prevalent in Parasite from Bong Joon-ho, which was an incredible film, Academy Award winning film. and I would want to talk about that film, especially with somebody else. And I'm waiting for somebody to claim that one as well. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the whole idea of class in here, in this film.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and also, like, it's based on a Victorian novel, and it felt very Victorian in that sense, with the class social structure of having a pickpocket come to essentially rob an heiress of her fortune. But of course, pickpocket and heiress fall in love, which is cute. I like when that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the beginning, I was definitely rooting for them before I ever met Hideko. I'm like, yeah, take her money.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way. I was like, God, I hope this movie just ends with her taking the money. It's like, and then you kind of feel like what she's starting to feel for her, and you're starting to see like, oh crap, maybe the rich do decide to really do deserve to have a happy ending in this. What's it called? In this film, but yeah, what's it called? Just that whole idea of like her being a pickpocket, her knowing how to tell a fake sapphire from a real sapphire. The guy coming in and being like trying to undersell her when she's like, no, I want to get an extra 100,000 yen, and I want to make sure I get the jewelries and stuff. Her trying on the clothes of the rich woman and feeling very different in it. It's really interesting how they depict the whole, fish coming out of the big pond, right, and going into this vastly different world that she does not know.
I'm trying to hold on. I have like a quote that I thought was super cute. I have to find it, but it's like when Suki is like dressing up Hideko and Hideko's dressing her up. Okay, so it's like, ladies truly are the dolls of maids. All these buttons are for my amusement. If I undo the buttons and pull the cords, then the sweet things within, those sweet and soft things, if I were still a pickpocket, I'd slip my hand inside. And I thought that was just like really cute.
It's just incredible writing. I that's one of my favorite lines of the film too. And I just and it's being repeated while she's like softly taking off those buttons. And I think it's also funny that it comes right after when Hideko kind of tries to tie the corset, and he's like, oh, like no.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Hideko felt just like a really nice person. Like, usually when people are rich like that, they tend to be a little spoiled and kind of awful. And for the most part, when I see movies with like an heiress like bossing her maid around, it's like pretty cruel. But Hideko was just like really chill, like letting her try on her dresses and stuff. And I thought that was really sweet.
She slapped the other ones when they stole the shoe, but what's it called? You have to send a message somehow, right?
Yeah.
It's fine. Slap the other poor maids, but it's all good. It's all good. But I love that whole part where she's kind of trying on the dresses, because it's like, oh, like this is the life I'm gonna have once I finish this mission. While I get that money, I'm gonna be able to be like Hideko. I may not have her, but I'll be like her.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like Hideko at that part, like, she's realizing she's falling in love with Suki because she tells Suki that she sees her face when she goes to sleep at night. And so I think like when Hideko's dressing up Suki, she's like, oh, like this could be my potential partner in life,
Yeah. And then you get those wonderful scenes where she's kind of being the voyeur as well. When she's like looking through the crack in the door, when she gets out of the bed and she puts on her gown, when her breasts are kind of exposed, and you're like the voyeur is kind of becoming the voyeur now, and it's really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And one of my favorite quotes too is like when Suki was like destroying all the books and stuff, and Hideko was just kind of watching her in amazement. And she's just like, the daughter of a legendary thief who sewed winter coats out of stolen purses, herself a thief, pickpocket, swindler, the savior who came to tear my life apart, my Tamako, my Suki. And I was like, oh, it's so cute.
Yep. So I like I tell you, I love this movie. I think to me it's one of the best of the decade, and I think that it was heavily snubbed for Academy Awards because this film is masterful. It's incredible. I think that it's probably one of the best Korean films I've ever seen. It's also probably the thing that makes me realize that Jesus Christ, Korean cinema is amazing, and they can do incredible things over there. And I really do recommend everybody go watch this film. Everybody go watch more of Park Chan-wook's work because he's an incredible filmmaker, and this film is just the icing on the cake, to be honest, because there's more to him that's just incredible in it. And I know that we can't really talk about every single thing about Park Chan-wook, but hopefully somebody will come in here and want to do Old Boy or one of the other films from him, because I really, 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 really want to keep talking about this man because he's an incredible filmmaker. And, you know, the performances were amazing as well, and the cinematography was incredible. And what's it called? That was our discussion on Park Chan-wook's Handmaiden, unless we have anything else to be said.
Nope. Just, watch lesbian movies. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you came back, Leah, because you're one of the best, and I love having you on. And I know we have 2 more movies to do for you. And what's it called? Those are Hereditary and Midsommar. And I can't wait to bring you on for those. But I'm glad that you chose this one. You're like, let me watch something that I haven't watched before. And
Yeah, I've already seen Hereditary like 5 times. I haven't rewatched Midsommar yet, though. But I was like, you know what? I had just watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and I was like, let's get some more lesbian cinema up in here.
dude, and I'm sorry, it just completely well, I'm not sorry. Alex took that one. It was gonna happen. She was gonna take. You should have hit me up earlier in that day to claim it, but somebody already grabbed it.
I mean, that's fine. I enjoyed it just on my own, just fine.
Yep. And if you haven't watched Parasite, that's on Hulu as well, along with the other 3 films.
Yeah, I just saw that they just added it on Hulu, so I'm gonna give that a watch sometime this week, probably.
There's 3 other films on there by Bong Joon-ho that I recommend everybody else watch too. So that go and stream that. Go and stream Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and go watch The Handmaiden if you have Amazon Prime. But that is it. Leo, can you tell the people where they can find you?
Oh yeah, so I'm on Twitter and not Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, and now Twitch, even though I haven't started streaming yet, but it's at Lumpy Space Bitch, but the I in bitch is a 1.
Nice.
So, hit me up.
And you can listen to Leah on all the other episodes that she's on the show whenever she wants to come on, but we'll wait for her to come back for 2 more movies. And you can always find me at the Nerd Chicano on Instagram and Twitter, and I host the Nerdcore podcast and the Nerdcore live show on the Nerdcore podcast feed at anchor.fm/Nerdcore. If you want to get this episode days early, I think it's like a whole week, you guys go check it out at patreon.com/Nerdcore. And as always, make sure you check out the nerdcore.com for my written reviews and stuff like that. I want to thank my guest for coming on. She is incredible. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to next week's episode when I bring back Alex Almeida to discuss Gaspar Noé's 2015 film, Love, one of my favorite films of all time. So this has been the Cinema Condition. And as always, I don't have an outro. So I just ask you guys to go stream The Handmaiden and Portrait of a Lady on Fire. We'll see you in the next one, guys.